We have major damage in town. Oh my God.
Right now, the National Weather Desk, tornado ripped through northern Texas yesterday, leaving at least 3 dead and dozens injured. And severe storms in Florida overnight, setting off life-threatening flash flooding and dangerous lightning hitting one person.
All the bees are seeing, not you defending yourself, the bees are seeing you being aggressive.
And it's bee swarming season. We'll show you what you should do if you get caught by a swarm. And we'll look at how drones are becoming a frontline tool for weather prediction.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Severe weather struck large portions of the South yesterday and last night. We begin in the Texas Panhandle, where a tornado ripped through a small town northeast of Amarillo, killing at least 3 people, injuring dozens more, and causing widespread damage. The National Weather Service confirmed a twister touchdown in Perryton near the Texas-Oklahoma border. We do know a mobile home park took a direct hit. At least 30 trailers are damaged or even destroyed. Firefighters searching the rubble for survivors to rescue people. Just one in a series of fierce storms that carved through southern states on Wednesday and Thursday. Florida was hit by intense storms overnight. Pensacola saw 12 inches of rain in just 6 hours, leading to severe flash flooding. The National Weather Service issued a flash flood emergency for the region, with rain expected to continue into Saturday. That same storm system setting off lots of lightning, igniting several house fires. One person was taken to the hospital after being hit by lightning. No word on how that person is doing this morning. Strong winds also brought down trees and power lines. One tree landing on a mobile home, killing one person who was inside that house. The risk of severe weather continues today in the South, and meteorologist Brian Vandergraff is tracking all the action for us this morning. Brian?
Yeah, good morning, Angela. Yeah, there are 3 areas of slight risk today. Slight is our level 2 out of 5. It is not as high as what we saw yesterday, but nonetheless, there can be some strong storms through eastern portions of Colorado, western portions of Kansas, also across the Delmarva, Virginia. But we're focusing down here in the South because those are some of the areas that got hit yesterday. Portions of Arkansas right on through Mississippi, right down through Alabama and into the Panhandle of Florida, the same area that got all that rain yesterday. Our biggest threats today, damaging wind gusts and large hail. Luckily, the tornado threat is somewhat diminished this afternoon. Angela?
All right, and now to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And look at this time-lapse video right here, capturing smoke from the Canadian wildfires as it moved into town. Yesterday morning, air quality slipped into the orange zone, which is considered unhealthy for sensitive people. But things are expected to actually get better today, landing in the yellow or moderate zone. Those who are sensitive to particle pollution may want to limit their time outside, though. A surprise storm in Michigan on Thursday. Hail hitting the town of Howell, about 50 miles northeast of Detroit. This Michigan State Police patrol car, you can see it here, taking a real beating from that falling ice. But it wasn't just cars. Brett Cass has that story.
Just before 5 p.m., an onslaught of hail falling onto homes in Howell. Residents like Kim Stricker, who was home at the time with his wife Sarah, wondered if it was heavy rain until he looked outside.
I opened the door and I said, "What the hail?"
The hail continued to fall as some Howell backyards measured nearly 2 inches of hail, with pieces roughly 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Stricker worried those sizable chunks of ice would break through his skylight as water leaked through the ceiling in his office.
I've never seen hail like that before. It was coming down, pummeling the house.
You could see it just, they were hitting hard. It would get a little scary.
Less than a mile down the road, Chris Moore checks out the dents on the hood of his car.
Here's some of the small that's melting, but this is what was coming down and did all the damage. That's what you can hear on the roof.
I'm extremely fortunate. I don't see any damage.
Meanwhile, Stricker is thankful there's no damage to his boat, just damage to his plants and leaves covering the backyard, knowing this passing storm could have left much more damage in its wake.
Sad deal. I mean, this is crazy. I've never seen this kind of thing.
The oppressive heat continues in central Texas. Triple-digit temperatures are expected for at least another week. For folks spending a lot of time outside, heat exhaustion can be dangerous and also deadly, but it's also avoidable. Doctors say one of the main signs that you should look out for is when someone is not sweating. Hydrating a lot, at least 2 hours before going outside, is key. They also recommend taking mandatory breaks every 30 to 45 minutes to sit in the shade or even the AC. And cool your core body temperature. These recommendations are for both kids and also for adults.
Now, if things don't improve and you're still outside, then most of the time what happens when leading into heat stroke, a person will pass out, their body temperature gets really high, and that can be a deadly thing.
The heat is also putting a strain on the power grid, but experts say it should hold up just fine. 88 years ago this month, folks in Austin were not really focused on the heat, but the massive amounts of floodwater that overtook the city. Here's Jessica Taylor with a piece of Austin history.
In 1935, one of the worst floods in Austin's history took place. The Austin History Center wrote that the water even submerged the Congress Avenue Bridge. Today, there's one spot in Austin where you can still see the markings of history.
In our building, it raised up 7 feet inside the building. There was 7 feet of water in the building.
The building on Red River Street where Ironworks Barbecue sits has a rich history.
The building itself was erected by a gentleman by the last name of Weigel, and he first started it as a blacksmith shop.
Shortly after its opening, floodwaters swept through. Repairs were later done, and eventually the Ewell family transformed it into the iconic barbecue spot.
Does anyone ever point out the flood marker on it?
They do, actually, yes, a lot. And they ask stories about what happened and why is that there.
The hope is to never experience a flood like that again.
An extremely wet winter in California has revived the once dormant Tulare Lake. The Kings County Sheriff's Office took a recent airboat tour with PG&E, which was eye-opening, awe-inspiring, and also provided surrounding communities insight into its behavior. Fresno reporter Christina Lopez has details.
At speeds of 35 miles per hour, Kings County Sheriff's Office joined PG&E on Thursday to survey the condition of the historic Tulare Lake, months after its reemergence.
It's a biblical event. Just impressive in the fact that you realize this was nothing but farmland. I've driven through that area, dozens and dozens of times throughout my career, and you always, knew, this used to be a lake way back when, but you never thought it would actually reappear, and yet here it is. We had flooding in 69 and 83, and then here now in 23. Probably not going to see it again in my lifetime. You never know, but the odds are you won't. If you didn't know where you were at, you would think you were just on a lake somewhere. It's a very eerie experience.
An experience with scenes like this, peeking above the lake's surface, reveal entire neighborhoods frozen in time.
There's homes in that area where some of the workers had lived, and just to see them basically half full of water. There was one house that had a wreath on the door, looked like a heart wreath, probably from Valentine's Day.
A fine line between devastation and beauty, including the reemergence of wildlife.
There was dozens and dozens of different kind of birds nesting, and you could just hear the birds making all sorts of different sounds. It's like just a rebirth of all this wildlife, all these birds and the nests, and you saw fish jumping out of the water. There was ducks diving in the water trying to get fish, but then you see the devastation, and the financial impact it's going to have to our county. You figure this water is full of chemicals, fertilizer, chicken manure from the Foster Farms chicken farm, oil, diesel fuel, you name it, it's out there. It's not just a little puddle that's here, it's a big area. This is such a huge event for little old Kings County that for us it's kind of a biblical moment.
A Coast Guard crew rescues a dog that fell 300 feet off a cliff. It happened Wednesday in Oregon. The German Shepherd was there with its owner when it fell into a remote beach that it's hard to get to. Apparently, a Coast Guard rescue swimmer retrieved that injured dog, and a helicopter airlifted him to his owner. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll look at how drones are helping improve weather forecasting and how you can stay safe from bee swarms during the summer season. But first, let's test your weather wit before we go on break. On average, how many times a year does the Empire State Building get struck by lightning? We'll have the answer. There's a list on your screen. We'll have the answer when we come back.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. Most of the Northeast will top out in the 70s and 80s today. The exception back in New York. Some areas will be quite a bit cooler there because we have some showers and thunderstorms developing. There'll be more clouds in that region. Most of New England will see some bright skies with a chance for a shower or thunderstorm. Then as we go into the weekend, it's not a great look for Saturday and Sunday. There'll be a lot of clouds, some on and off showers and cool temperatures. Highs on Saturday and Sunday should be in the 60s.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Going to start off with potentially a couple of showers through the morning hours. A better risk of some thunderstorms with the next weather maker moving through noontime and beyond, though. Up and down the 95 corridor could be a little bit messy working into the PM commute hours, 2:30 to about 5 o'clock, and maybe another ending round by about 7 to 8 o'clock in the evening. This is as our latest weather maker moves through. Behind it, nice dry weather for much of the weekend. That's a scene here.
Good morning to you. I'm meteorologist Michael Ehrenberg with a look at your Southeast regional forecast for this Friday. Persistent areas of rain for southern sections of Alabama, South Georgia, and northern sections of Florida throughout the daytime hours, and more showers and storms spreading through the interior of South Florida during the late afternoon and also the early evening hours as that upper level trough moves southeast. Temperatures hot, muggy everywhere, upper 80s and low 90s. Hottest temperatures in central and South Florida, 94 the high of West Palm, 92 for Tampa, with 80s across other parts of the southeast.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Well, earlier I asked, on average, how many times a year does the Empire State Building get hit by lightning? The answer? 23. See, it's a myth that lightning never strikes the same place twice. Radar, satellite, and weather balloons are all technology used to help meteorologists predict weather. Despite all of that tech, there's still a data gap in measuring the current state of the lower atmosphere. This is where something called Meteodrones comes into play. What exactly is a Meteodrone? Meteorologist Ed Russo in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with the answer. And spring and summer are a swarming season for bees, meaning your risk of getting stung goes up. Betty Cross spoke with an expert on what to do in the event you are faced with a swarm of bees.
Well over 20,000 honeybees are about to be evicted from a West Austin apartment complex. Walter Schumacher is the founder of the American Honeybee Protection Agency.
Get it going so you can push that down after it's all fired up.
Walter and his squad use these smokers to calm bees and interfere with their sense of smell.
Give me some smoke right here on the edge.
After a few pumps, it's time to lift the lid on the problem.
So that's their beehive, and a lot of it's fallen down.
Walter spends so much time with bees, he doesn't wear protective gear. But just because he's comfortable around them,
oh, look at that, it got me,
doesn't mean they're comfortable around him.
Bees defend their home.
This crew was called in after a couple of recent stings around the apartment pool. Residents are ready for the bees to change addresses. Figuring out the best way to protect yourself is a numbers game.
Come on now. There we go.
If a single stinging insect is flying around, remain calm and still. No swatting.
Bees target motion. So when you're doing that, all the bees are seeing not you defending yourself. The bees are seeing you being aggressive, and then they send out 10% of the hive to get you.
But if a group of bees attack at once, experts say to run fast and far to get away from them. That's because bees release a chemical when they sting that may attract more of the colony.
And we are all familiar with bees, but you are probably less familiar with the Greenbrier Cave crayfish. It can only be found in the caves of West Virginia, and because it is never exposed to the elements, it has some pretty unique features. Meteorologist Brandon Stover is in Charleston, West Virginia with a look at this unique decapod.
Crayfish are very common here, but you probably haven't seen this one. This is the Greenbrier Cave crayfish. It's the only one in West Virginia that lives its entire life underground. And the southeastern portion of the state is the only place you'll find it in the entire world.
They are still pigmented, but they're usually a little clearer than the surface crayfish, and they have reduced eyes, longer appendages, and longer antennae, so they look a little alien-like and exaggerated. So he's lost his claw, and then as he molts, he'll regenerate a new claw.
As of now, the West Virginia species is listed as critically imperiled.
They're so susceptible to like pollution and degradation and stuff like that. It's really important to voice that to the public and make sure that they use safe practices for the cave environment.
This species finds a way down here.
It's a really unique organism. It's the only cave crayfish in the state. They're worth protecting just for that fact alone.
Caves are really harbors of unique biodiversity. Species live in caves that don't live out in the forest or in other habitats.
Oh. TV stations use drones in many ways, but weather and beauty shots for breaking news too. In addition to photography, drones are also used by the military, first responders, Amazon delivery drivers, and even, of course, weather forecasting. Meteorologist Ed Russo caught up with a Pennsylvania-based company that is advancing weather forecasting with a very special type of drone.
Meteodrones, simply put, are drones that measure the atmosphere and ingest data into weather models.
So that input into a high-resolution forecast model enables us to predict the weather down to a level of about a little over a half a mile, and then update that every hour with this information from the lowest levels of the atmosphere.
This would bring greater accuracy to single neighborhoods. Improvements to predicting weather variables like air quality would improve.
Where we've got this horrible air quality, which has massive impacts on all of us, we will be able to more precisely predict when and where the air quality is going to degrade.
That ultimately helps people and businesses make better decisions on when and how to prepare for impactful weather. Meteodrones aren't your typical drone that you may fly recreationally.
They basically are similar to a weather balloon, only they're drones, and they go straight up and they go straight down.
This is Skyview 21, obviously much smaller than a Meteodrone. And there's no automation, meaning when I put this thing up in the air, I have to control it at all times with this controller. And the other thing, legally, I can only fly this up to 400 feet, which is a much lower altitude than the Meteodrone, which is capable of going all the way up to 20,000. Meteodrones are largely autonomous and can take true vertical measurements of the lower atmosphere because they don't drift in the wind like weather balloons. When weather balloons eventually pop, they also contribute to pollution. Meteodrones always return to the exact spot they launched from. They're also weatherproof, to a certain extent.
They're developed to fly through clouds, so it actually has a de-icing equipment on it.
In May, the first Meteodrone launch in the U.S. took place in North Dakota, and that's just the start.
And the more airports, the more National Weather Service sites, the more military bases that are using this, that are feeding this data back into these 1 kilometer forecast models, means that we're going to have more precise and more accurate sort of short-range forecasts. And then the uses for that data are almost uncountable.
And some cool events will take place throughout the country this weekend, like the Reno, Nevada rodeo that's underway right now. Look at this. Ahead of the rodeo, there was a 5-day cattle drive with more than 300 steer from Doyle, California, all the way to the rodeo grounds in the biggest little city. Here's how the weekend forecast looks for that event.
I'm meteorologist Matt Monroe from Reno, Nevada, and it's Reno rodeo time, known as the wildest, richest rodeo in the West. Bull riding, bareback bronco riding. It's a lot of fun. Come on out. Weekend is looking good for it. On Saturday, sunny, hot, breezy, dry, 89 degrees. And on Sunday, cold front comes through, 82 degrees, partly cloudy, warm, breezy, dry, winds gusting to 30.
Happy Friday, everyone. In downtown Providence, Saturday is a big day, Rhode Island Pride Parade, and it's an evening parade with lights, and it's a festival-like atmosphere. Going to be really fun, but in the Northeast, we are running into some rain chances. The good news, though, it looks to be mainly Saturday morning. We could see a few isolated showers as we head closer to dinner time, but then mostly cloudy skies. Once that parade kicks off around 7 p.m., more cloudy conditions and even some better breaks of sun as we head closer to Father's Day. This front could actually even bring some scattered rain and storms late Friday night to the area, bringing us that best chance of some thunder and lightning into early Saturday before we begin to clear up. Highs on Saturday in the low 70s. For the National Weather Desk, I'm Storm Team 10 meteorologist Christina Ernie.
And as we head for a short break, we take in views of Montana from above.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Mike Joyce. Across the Midwest, a quiet day overall. We are going to see a few showers still lingering into the lower Great Lakes near the Ohio Valley, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Lexington in the mid to upper 70s. We crank that temperature up as we head off to the west. We have temperatures in the 80s heading into our locations like Springfield, Illinois, and St. Louis. 90s out in Sioux City, South Dakota, but a little bit cooler where we have thunderstorms in the central portion of the state.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're waking up a little toasty and humid from San Antonio back into New Orleans. Cooler as you get up toward Amarillo into the 60s. A big low pressure center will be the main trigger for showers, maybe some thunderstorms, and back out toward the east as well. It's going to be another hot and humid day across most of the region. Be prepared for triple-digit highs. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia, and that's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi, everybody, and happy Friday. Nearly the weekend, the final weekend of spring, mind you. Feels very summer-like, though, of course, already around the desert Southwest with 103 later on our Friday in Phoenix. Still in the 60s thanks to the June gloom, all of the fog in coastal San Francisco and L.A. What about the Pacific Northwest? This front continues to move on in through the Intermountain West, dropping into Utah and Denver today. Chance for some thunderstorms moving in that direction. And that's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A rogue 30-mile-an-hour wind gust in Maryland topples this deck umbrella, which then swipes the grill to the ground as well, showing sometimes impactful weather can happen, even at times when it isn't severe. Now to Utah, where this cold air funnel was spotted over Utah Lake near Provo Thursday morning, something that isn't seen there too often.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Well, have you ever heard of katabatic winds? Theron Zahn is here to explain what that means.
This is a map of the current watches and warnings issued by the National Weather Service. You can see we have some excessive heat warnings up, also some flood watches. Often these type of warnings involve wind, and maybe there's a type of wind you never heard of before, katabatic wind. What is that? Well, that's wind blowing down an incline, otherwise known as a Chinook wind. When this happens, it can cause something known as compressional heating, squeezing the air molecules together, causing that wind to warm up.
And we love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. And thank you so much for joining us. Have you ever heard of a derecho? Monday on the National Weather Desk, we'll break down this weather phenomenon and explain how it got its name. I'm Angela Brown. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.